We teach girls to shrink themselves, to make themselves smaller. We say to girls, you can have ambition, but not too much. You should aim to be successful, but not too successful, otherwise you will threaten the man. Because I am female, I'm expected to aspire to marriage. I'm expected to make my life choices, always keeping in mind that marriage is the most important.
Would you consider yourself to be a feminist? Why or why not?
I would not consider myself to be a feminist.
I think I would be.
Yes. Yes and no.
No. Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Yes and no.
Absolutely 100% a feminist. Started back in the 20s with the suffragettes and people who men considered to be a threat to their power, pretty much an all-male institution. And then I think we get the National Organization for Women, which is called acronym NOW, came back around in the late 60s, early 70s.
Feminism would be women basically doing the, having the same opportunities and probably like equal. Go for it. Have an equal status as far as everything in the United States, meaning responsibility as well. So even the idea of going to war and things like that. So that there's nothing that's different except for the gender that we are.
Would you consider yourself to be a feminist? Why or why not?
By the intellectual definition of feminism, then yeah, sure, absolutely. I believe in equal rights and the analysis of gender as a thing that impacts our world, for sure.
Okay. In your own words, how would you define feminism?
An analysis of gender issues, specifically as they relate to women, most predominantly, for feminism, but also just the discussion of how gender roles are established in our society, mostly, again, as it gears towards women, but the belief also in equal rights and pay and things like that.
The equality of sexes politically, financially, everything in the workplace, everywhere.
The stereotypical definition is, of course, fighting for, equal rights for women. But I think it's important, especially in today's society, that we think about treating everybody as a human beast versus male, female, that kind of thing.
I think it's more so, or at least what it is in my mind, it's like being supportive of all genders, especially kind of bringing to light the fact that women are treated equally, they aren't paid equally, their opinions aren't held to the same regard that people of other genders are. So it's just kind of being in support of those things and wanting to be taken seriously.
I think a strong woman who fights for her rights.
I would define feminism as women fighting to get equal rights as men.
Feminism is fighting for rights that you already have. Like, you want to say the gender wage gap that people think exists. If you just look into the stats and you equalize all of the differences, all the variables, then there's really not that much of one if there is one at all. Yeah.
I think because of some of the extremists have kind of given it a bad name, that they tried to be exclusive of our gender, if you will, versus inclusive of all people. Because we all know that each one of us, regardless, have experienced some adversity because of who we are or what we are. So I think it's time to look at human beings versus, because when we start to pick on talk about females, then sometimes boys are left behind too, you know, and obviously trans people and gay people. I think we need to start just looking at it as love the word human beast.
I think it comes back to men feeling a little bit intimidated by giving up some power, and anytime that a woman would use a drastic measure, back in the 20s it was chaining themselves to the White House gates. In the 60s and 70s, it was kind of saying we don't need to get married, we don't need to have children, we can just have a career like anybody else. And I think that was a threat to gender roles, and people just associated feminism with something that was negative.
I'm going to be blunt, and I think basically people equate the word feminist with bitch. Even the word, even women sometimes equate that, and a lot of women think that it's unfeminine to be a feminist. And a feminist just basically is meaning that you want the same opportunities and rights, and I think, and I said to you, I think responsibilities too that men have. And I think that basically a lot of people think that it's just you're just being unreasonable.
I think there's a stigma around it because, frankly, I think a lot of people are ignorant and they don't want to believe that there's actually like an issue here, and they take it in the wrong way, and they think that because there already is an issue and people think lowly of women in general, so they automatically associate it with something bad.
I think because most people that are offended or upset by the idea of feminism are afraid of losing power, so when people hear feminism, they think it's an attack on like masculinity or like men are evil, which is not really the purpose of feminism, obviously. So I think that it gets a dirty name to it in the same way that like civil rights can somehow get a dirty name, because how could you be offended by people wanting equal rights? But I think that specifically people who are in power get upset when they think that their power may be threatened.
It'd be because, the generation, like our parents and stuff and older than them, didn't really have I think nowadays we have a lot of feminists and there's a lot of us around, but when our parents were young, they didn't really have that influence. So I think a lot of them are very conservative against the idea of feminists. So I think that's probably why.
Because there's with the rise of social media and other forms of communication that are easy to get between people, like text messages and all that stuff. You can see the extremes of any ideology, whether it be political, social, economic, anything like that. So you see people calling themselves feminists that get mad at people, get mad at guys or girls for doing something, and it's something ridiculous.
There's a stigma against the word feminism because of all the, like I said before, the crazy women we see on YouTube or whatever, just being really rude about it. But just because of the couple people that are crazy feminists doesn't mean that everyone is, but people only look at the bad side, so that's why there's a stigma against that word.
If we just get rid of feminism, then there won't be a stigma.
I think we've gotten off on a good foot, and we're just kind of bringing attention to it and not ignoring the issue. And there are people who are very well known socially, whether famous athletes, whatnot. They're bringing attention to it, and I think that's very important. And there are marches and things like that. And clearly, we can't force the federal government or state governments, whatever it is, to make those changes that we're asking for. But I think the biggest thing is to get the word out and make people talk about it, and that's how the word will spread, and eventually change will happen. And you just gotta stand up for what you believe in and not back down.
Ooh. That's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that. I think that discussion is healthy. I know that's, but discussion that doesn't end up getting heated, I think as soon as people get their backs up against a wall, or as soon as people get upset or start arguing and yelling, then discussions tend to stop. People tend to go to their corner and just fight from there. So actual authentic discussion that talks about concerns that people have usually can be helpful, though that sounds really generalized and unlikely.
Well, aside from men getting on board with the idea that women can do similar things, I don't think women can do everything because we're not bodily built the same. We don't have the same musculature and things like that, okay? And not the same testosterone and all that jazz. So yes, obviously there's differences. But what I think also is, aside from men, I think a lot of women have to get off their rear ends and have to decide that if you want to be quote unquote equal, you're going to have the same responsibilities as a man has, and you're going to have to maybe do things that you don't like to do. One of the things that they've shown in some psych studies is the fact that why are women not breaking the glass ceiling and why are men and all that, and a lot of it turns out to be choice. It's women don't like to do dirty jobs. They don't like to move. They don't like to not have the social things. Men will give up their daughter's ballet recital, and a woman is like, she'll be in therapy for the rest of her life. So I think that women also have to pick themselves up, and they have to make a lot of choices. And in some cases, women, we're our own worst enemy in the sense that we will actually sabotage other women who are trying to get ahead. So we have to start, pulling our big girl pants on at certain points and saying like, yep, I'm responsible, and I'll take the good with the bad, and then work with it. And I think if both, if we give that example, I think then men will have the example of, okay, my wife can take out the trash as good as I can take out the trash.
Or would you reconsider your view on feminism?
No.
Do you want to elaborate?
I mean, that's basically what I had in mind, and I still agree. I still agree with my earlier statement about it.
No, the definition.
We changed your mind?
I changed my mind.
Feminist, a person who believes in the social, political, and economic equality of the sexes.